Rodgers catches the shotgun snap. Now he'll run around, allow his receivers to get downfield, and he launches it into the end zone. And it is broken up, incomplete, knocked away by DJ Ivey. And the Bengals have knocked out the Steelers on Thursday night by the final score of 33-31. The AFC North gets tighter, and the Bengals' outlook gets brighter with a tremendous closing finish and a game-winning field goal with 7 seconds to go.
Oh, great call there by Dan Horde. And you could hear a little cackling from Dave Lapham in the background. WCKY on a magical night for football in Ohio. I said it. When Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers trade lasers back and forth all night, and it ends on a night that Mike Tomlin was right. He should have been mad about them trading for Joe Flacco on a night that paying two wide receivers all the money looked smart. Yes, the Bengals kept hope alive in the AFC North, and the Thursday night problems for Mike Tomlin continued. Shookie, you must have been getting flashbacks. Joe Flacco on Thursday Night Football having a moment, and yes, an AFC North crowd chanting for Joe Flacco like they were in Cleveland just a couple years ago.
Yeah, this time around it happens in the opposite corner of the state. I mean, that arm is still live, and Joe Flacco, he's got the wisdom of nearly 2 decades in the NFL, and he's using it at his full disposal, and luckily the Bengals are the beneficiaries. Luckily, because it takes an AFC North race that was, frankly, starting to get pretty boring, makes it a little more interesting now with an upset like this.
It absolutely does, and we didn't go with the game-winning field goal call at the end because by then it was anticlimactic. It was really the Flacco throw to T. Higgins once again picking on Jalen Ramsey. Man-to-man coverage throughout the first half. Jamar Chase just abusing Ramsey mostly. Darius Slay at some point. They switched the zone for most of the second half, at least on Chase. But Flacco saw his other number 1B receiver on the sideline, and he made what was ultimately the game-winning play.
Chase, one of 3 receivers out to the right. Flacco is ready. Catches the shotgun snap. Blitz coming. Flacco throws a fade, and it is caught. Running inside the 10 and going into a slide is T. Higgins. That's brilliant. Had he run into the end zone, it would have been a touchdown. We all would have been excited, but it would have left plenty of time for Rodgers to answer. By going down, he forces the Steelers to call another timeout.
Total dime there by Flacco and a great heady play by T. Higgins. The attention will rightfully be on Jamar Chase on a night where he caught 16 passes for 161 yards and a touchdown, but they do not win this game without a couple really great contested catches by T. Higgins, who winds up going 6 for 96 and a touchdown of his own, and then a classy, stylish way to finish it there with the slide. I'm liking these game-ending slides in big moments like Justin Herbert had.
Yeah, if we could just take this knowledge, this football IQ, and apply it to the guys crossing the goal line and dropping the football before they cross the goal line, we'd live in a much better world. But yes, everybody's going to focus on that slide, and rightfully so, because it was a great play, and it was a great decision made by T. Higgins when he had the glory of a touchdown right in front of him. But what I think is the most astonishing result from tonight, and we saw it in multiple occasions, mostly with Jamar Chase, but also on that throw with Higgins, is the understanding that Joe Flacco has with these 2 top receivers after being with the Bengals for 10 days. This is why Zach Taylor was all on board with going and getting Joe Flacco, because he knew that there were other replacements out there who might, make him a little bit better and be a better option than Jake Browning, but none had the experience and the ability to get on the same page with the players that they invested in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, like Joe Flacco. And it makes all the world's worth of sense now, and also makes us understand why Mike Tomlin was so angry, so pissed off at Andrew Berry for making that trade.
It's funny because if you kind of think about that comment, it almost is prematurely showing some fear. Yeah, I'm not that that has any reason to do with what happened here, but it kind of showed ball knowers know And if you go back and watch that Browns film, and a lot of people who I really respect in the industry were like, look, Joe Flacco was a mess. What are you talking about this year? Watch him in Cleveland like he's not the old guy. And yes, under pressure, those plays were over in Cleveland. But when I watched that Browns offense earlier this season, I did not think Joe Flacco was the problem. And actually, he spun it pretty well on a lot of plays. It is damning to the Browns how bad they look compared to how good the Bengals look. But let's focus on the Bengals for now. We can get back to that later. What I will say about Flacco is he wasn't under a lot of pressure tonight. Zach Taylor has done a good job play calling, and you saw it start in the second half of last week's game. More under center runs, more under center throws, and ultimately he was getting the ball out quickly, but not sacrificing the ability to make some big plays. That the pressure from the pass rush started to come for the Steelers in the fourth quarter in some third and long situations. But until then, they really did a good job game planning. And I always get on Zach Taylor, so you got to give him the credit. I think they've adjusted this offense and they look better overall. Chase Brown ran the ball much better in this game too. It was a complete offensive performance against a Steelers defense that came into this game on a high.
Yeah, I think Zach Taylor picked and chose his spots really, really well. Like where he decided to, like there were situations where we're leaning on the run game. That obviously, unlocked their offense, was being able to get Chase Brown going. Now Chase Brown too, some patient running, ripping off chunk plays. That absolutely balanced out the offense, which was completely absent in the previous 6 games that they'd played this year, and really the last 4 games once Joe Burrow went down. That was part one of it. But part two of it was the fact that they were able to mix up their play calling. It was a lot of quick throws. Average time to throw for Joe Flacco tonight was 2.44 seconds. That's quick. That's very fast. And they understand that Flacco is kind of like built like Tom Brady, in which he has all that wealth of knowledge, can make this pre-snap decisions. And once that comes open, he's going to fire it. That he threw 2 touchdown passes like that, where he read the coverage. They ran, I think it was Noah Fant through coverage, and they basically created some traffic to get him open. Quick throw. Another quick throw on the goal line earlier as well for a touchdown. So that was another part of it. But the other part of it was when they were able to get that done, it bought them time to occasionally get a longer developing play. None of this happens without Joe Flacco having Jamar Chase at his disposal. In Madden terms, he's spamming Jamar Chase. He's just repeatedly throwing to the same button over and over and over again, because he knows he can trust him to get open. And he learned in that Packers game last week that Chase is going to make those contested catches that most everybody else is not going to make, the unbelievable ones, because he had 2 against the Packers and he was just as good tonight. So that all of these things combined empowered Zach Taylor to call the game as he wanted. They don't get there though without the running game. Absolutely do not get there, because then the Steelers can play coverage. And if anything, it's short passing and nothing more. There was one sequence in the second half where I thought they got a little conservative and I got a little frustrated with them. And it was the short passes, the trying to run a swing pass to Chase Brown, trying to get a quick little bubble out to the outside. Otherwise, an expertly called game. One of Zach Taylor's finest performances as a play caller with the Bengals.
And you got to give even more credit, of course, to Flacco. I haven't said his numbers. They're ridiculous. 31 for 47 for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. Of those 47 attempts, 33 of them went to T and Chase. And football can get as complicated as you want it to get. But if you boil it down and you have 2 of the best contested catch receivers in the league, find a way to give them a chance. Because I know, again, T's numbers weren't as crazy, but man, that fingertip catch that he had, like picking the ball up off the ground in the first half of that game, like that's a play that you just don't have many guys are strong enough to make. And then, of course, Chase just on those slants over and over. And then when they started to play the slant to his back shoulder or on the fade, just every type of pass. It didn't all have to be deep down the field. It was 94 yards of yak. And I thought you were going to say when they got conservative there in the second half, the drive you didn't like was actually their second to last drive, where they did wind up punting the ball back to the Steelers. And that was the drive where they did go away from the run. There was also a holding call on a running play in the second half that was big. So that's just a problem. But they kind of let Flacco just drop back every down, and that got him in trouble. And we shouldn't have taken this long, but man, this was one of the best offensive performances, one of the games of the year for the Bengals. To note that, Aaron Rodgers was awesome tonight too. I actually think the box score does him a disservice. quote unquote, only 249 yards. And he does end up with 2 interceptions. One of them was just on a fantastic defensive play where DJ Turner just rips the ball out of DK Metcalf's hand. So you can't put that one on Aaron Rodgers. That was just an awesome play by a cornerback who is putting together a potential Pro Bowl type of season. That is how good DJ Turner has been the last couple of weeks. He has been absolutely fantastic. And he had an injury, but then came back to the game for the end of it. He's been great. The other interception was absolutely on Rodgers, and maybe in a game where there were so few offensive mistakes, like that was a difference maker. But man, I am going to remember that piss missile from Aaron Rodgers in the fourth quarter to take the lead. The Steelers are trailing by 2 scores throughout most of the second half. They're down 30-24. Rodgers gets the ball back with a chance to drive the field, needing a touchdown to take the lead. And this is what happens.
In the 32-yard line of the Steelers, Rodgers gets a snap, back pressure coming, eludes it, fires downfield, caught by Freiermuth. Freiermuth racing up the left sideline, the 20, the 10, the 5, touchdown Freiermuth. What a play! 68 yards. Rodgers with the late magic. The Steelers with the tie right now, pending the extra point for Boswell.
That's Rob King on WDVE. Tell me what you saw on that play, Nick Shook.
Absolute chaos in the back end. I mean, the coverage was completely busted almost from the start. They look like they're in like a 6 look, and then Geno Stone just gets completely lost.
What's a 6 look for all the fans out there?
One half of the field is somebody's in a deep half, and then the other half of the field are in deep quarters. So you have 3 deep guys, but the deep part of the field is not evenly distributed among the 3. And on the quarter side, Geno Stone just gets completely lost, almost like he forgets his assignment, drives down, leaves this seam open to Pat Freiermuth. Rodgers spots it as soon as he breaks the pocket and gets out wide, and immediately rips a pass right down the seam to Freiermuth, and he does the rest. And it is so fitting that an offense coordinated by Arthur Smith saw 3 different tight ends score touchdowns tonight. You had Darnell Washington with a score, Jonnu Smith with a score, and Pat Freiermuth with the most important score for the Steelers on the night there. It is just perfect for this team, how they're constructed, who directs them, but it all fits perfectly with Aaron Rodgers, who is capable of finding that and getting that ball there on time. When he threw that, I went, oh, but as he stepped up to rip it, I saw it open, prime vision, again, the best way to watch the game. And so I see it open up, and as soon as he winds the throw, I just go, oh God, courage throw, here we go. And it was right there. He put it right on him.
So glad you mentioned the prime vision angle on that. It's just so fun to watch on Thursday nights, because I think if you watch the TV copy of that, you think blown coverage by Geno Stone, who, once I looked at the dots, I think just got overly concerned about DK Metcalf and thought it was going there. And that's the gravity of what DK Metcalf brings. But just a mental mistake from Geno Stone. And I think Ravens fans were looking at that play and be like, I remember that Geno Stone. I know he had all those interceptions that one year, but there were a whole lot of plays like that he had to gamble on to get those interceptions.
That wasn't the only example of that, though. The Bengals had a similar situation in which, and it was often in situations in which they were worried about the opposing team just converting the first down, where the safeties got aggressive. Steelers had a safety drive down. Andre Yoshivas goes down the field, breaks coverage, beats Darius Slay downfield, and Joe Flacco puts it on him. And I know this was the Unk Bowl and everything else, the Icy Hot Bowl, whatever you wanted to call it, but both of those guys still have fantastic arms. And those 2 throws, the one that Rodgers hit to Freiermuth and the one that Flacco hit to Yoshivas, showed that they can still spin it.
Great call. Unk Bowl, by the way, created a little bit of a disagreement online whether white guys can be unks or not. It's not up for me to decide, but here's what this was. It was 2 over 40 quarterbacks, just reminding you of what they were when they were at their absolute best, and reminding you, at least on a play-to-play basis, like for that one play, for instance, for Rodgers, there's no difference. I mean, he spun out of a little bit of pressure, and yes, it was a busted coverage by the Bengals, but he spun to his left. That is not an easy throw to make, and watching it on that overhead camera, you know how much velocity, and he knew how much velocity he still needed to get on a rope to get it there. I know that there's 8, 10, whatever the number is, like young whippersnappers in the NFL that could probably put the velocity on that throw to make it happen. Aaron Rodgers but Aaron Rodgers is still one of those guys. And I was so excited about making that point. I actually ripped out a wire from my camera and we had to stop down. But through the magic of editing, our listeners will none be the wiser. We still got it. And I'm in my 40s. They're making me feel young tonight, Nick Shook.
Yeah, me too. It was good. Like I stopped considering age in sports because I'm at that point where in my age where a lot of guys are retiring that like played when I played. So there was a standout linebacker. I can't remember his name right now. He was playing with the Browns and he retired. It was Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks called it a career and he was in my class in high school. So it's like, yeah, all right, I'm getting to that point, but it's really fun to see guys because, we saw Tom Brady do it forever, but most guys don't do it forever. Aaron Rodgers for the last couple of years has not looked like Aaron Rodgers. Now he is looking like him again, even in a loss.
Yeah, I think Flacco and Rodgers share that the play falls apart when there's pressure far more than when they were younger. It's almost like the play is almost a little bit older, just over. But they can make up for it with play calling and with smarts about when and where to go with the football. And even though the Steelers lost, I think offensively, they have to be excited about the direction of the team. Really nice night for Jaylen Warren, who goes way over 100 yards. The Bengals defense had no answer really for the jumbo package that the Steelers had. And the jumbo package is, 6 offensive linemen plus Darnell Washington, who they said on the broadcast is over 300 pounds. Or I think it was Ross Tucker actually on Westwood One, I heard say like a good deal over 300 pounds and might be transitioning to tackle one day and have a Jason Peters like track. So like their offense, I think has made strides. Are you concerned a little bit about the Steelers defense after tonight?
I have issues with both sides of the ball. One with approach and the other with, personnel. I'll start offensively, even though you asked about defense, because I think that they gave the Bengals a break for a lot of this game. Talked about how getting the ball out quick for Joe Flacco was very beneficial for them. They had to do that. They have an offensive line they can't trust. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig are on that other side. Cam Hayward's on that other side. You got to get the ball out quick. You cannot subject Joe Flacco to the hits that the Steelers would bring to him. Just ask Dylan Gabriel how that went, right? The Steelers didn't need to do what they did. Now, Aaron Rodgers' time to throw ended up being closer to 3 seconds. It was like 2.92 or something like that. But there were a lot of instances in which they were getting the ball out quickly when they did not need to. That Bengals pass rush was non-existent, and yet they gave the secondary a break in a lot of this game. If you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing a little bit of a montage here. You have Rodgers extending a play here. This is what they should have done more of. Now, obviously, he's improvising when he throws that touchdown pass.
8 seconds, 8.6 seconds on that first touchdown throw. I thought it was going to be a long night after we saw that. I'm like, this team has no juice.
Because they have no pass rush. Trey Hendrickson is not out there. Like this is what you're not going to ask him to improvise every play, but you got to give him longer dropbacks. And on certain plays, I felt like he predetermined throws. The interception that he threw, he saw it one-on-one, but there was a safety over the top. He threw it into double coverage. It gets picked off. So I think that they need to go back to the drawing board and kind of acknowledge that, hey, even though it's good to get the ball out quickly, we need to understand the weaknesses of our opposing defenses. They didn't capitalize on that, and that allowed the Bengals to stay in the game. But I'm probably more concerned with their defense because there is money in that group. Jalen Ramsey got cooked all night. Darius Slay did not look good. Their safeties weren't the best in overall over like the course of the game. This is a defense that, like last year, is not playing up to expectation. Has in past weeks, did not tonight in a game that felt like a guarantee that they were going to feast on an offense that had struggled mightily, save for when they added Joe Flacco and kind of gave the Packers a game last week. They did not do that. They gave up long passes. They let Jamar Chase eat all night. They let T. Higgins catch a pass that sets them up for the game-winning field goal. This is unacceptable for them. This is not who their identity is. They have way too much money invested on that defense to play like this, so they need to figure some things out on that side of the ball.
Yeah, like, why is the best pass rusher in the league according to pass rush win rate? And to my eyes, just simply a top 5 pass rusher, period, Nick Herbig, on the bench so much in this game. Like, they couldn't figure out how to get him in there. And then you saw late Cam Hayward and Watt, combine on a sack, and that leads to the Steelers, the Bengals punting. And
But it
on
was
the
third
drive
and 18. They ran
yeah, it was third and 18. And they had a give up play, which I didn't even love. I'm like, the way Jamar Chase is playing, I would give Joe Flacco a chance to go get third and 18. But the drive before that, too, Nick Herbig was lined up inside of TJ Watt on a pass rush, and they've been doing that more often. I've been noticing where he's an inside rusher, which they never do with Watt or Highsmith, and it's really been effective. And he won immediately. And that was a play where the conversation in the booth is all about, was it a pass interference or not? And they didn't call it. Flacco threw it to the sideline. But I thought Herbig won that play ultimately because Flacco, if he sees color flash, he is just throwing that ball, and Herbig won right away. But that was too rare, obviously, on a night where the Bengals, for the most part, went up and down the field. That's a really interesting point that you make about not adjusting, I guess you would say.
It was driving me mad. There was a sequence, I think it was right after the Bengals settled for a field goal in the fourth quarter. It may have been a little bit earlier, where they're like running bubbles. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, it works on occasion. That's fine. You keep them honest, but you don't need to do that. So that's something that they definitely need to go back and evaluate. And they'll probably wish that they hadn't done it.
Yeah, that is a criticism, I think, for Mike Tomlin's entire tenure. And it's continued into today, and Steelers fans are so mad that they lost this game. And like, Tomlin's lost it, this, that, it's like, it's another Tomlin game. Like, he always loses these games as a heavy favorite. It's in the division. It's Thursday Night Football. These things happen. I think that's overreacting, but I think it is a fair criticism that they're not a nimble coaching staff in game. They or even between weeks, they kind of do what they do. It makes them a little predictable. And it's tough for me to criticize anything they did on offense tonight, because ultimately you have 9 drives and you put up 31 points. And that includes 2 interceptions. So one of them was a great defensive play, but that's what it required tonight. And ultimately, you didn't lose a shootout to Joe Burrow. You lost the shootout to Joe Flacco with a chance to win the division. Essentially, they all but add the division on ice if they win this game. That's pretty disappointing to lose that sort of shootout. You want to be able to win a shootout in that scenario. Yeah.
It's the other Joe Cool that you lost to, and this one's gonna sting for a little bit for them. I also, when we had our little technical issue there, I took a second to look at the Steelers' schedule, just because losses like this, they can be good for teams that get off to hot starts because it keeps them honest. But if you review the games they've won so far, they beat the Jets in week 1 in that shootout, right? And we know what the Jets are now. They lose to the Seahawks, in which the Seahawks were just the better team. They beat the Patriots primarily because they forced enough takeaways on defense to win that game. Like, that was a very winnable game for the Patriots. They didn't fumble it away, right? They beat Carson Wentz and the Vikings in Dublin, and they beat the lowly Browns. Now they lose to the Bengals. That 4-2 record does not look nearly as strong as it would without diving into that schedule, and things get tougher. You get the Packers, Colts, Chargers, and another rematch with the Bengals, this time in Pittsburgh, all in the next month. So this is going to have to be one of those games that may have come at the perfect time, because it kind of makes you come circle the wagons and figure out, all right, maybe we're not as good as we thought. We got some things we got to fix. But
no, it comes at the perfect time for us, Shooky, because I want teams to be alive. So before this masterpiece of a game happened, I thought it was going to be a bit of a dud. And so we have a whole other segment for the listeners. And it's, how many teams could we realistically see in the Super Bowl? And it was inspired a little bit by the Steelers, and inspired more by this season, where there's so many teams in the middle of the NFL that it really feels like anything's possible. And I'm like, could I see the Steelers in the Super Bowl? We'll get to that in a little bit. But what I like that this game did was it kept the division more alive.
Yes.
It keeps the Bengals more alive. You had Joe Burrow on the sideline, and he looked so sad. He looked like emo Joe Burrow. Babona's killing his haircut.
Yeah, his hair wasn't even good.
I mean, it's not great, and he just seems so sad. And I thought of all the accomplishments that Flacco had tonight, Shook, making Joe Burrow smile from ear to ear on the sideline was maybe Flacco's greatest achievement late in the game. Burrow just perked him up.
Because if you think about it, Joe Burrow said he was feeling better than ever going into the season. He's got his top 2 guys under contract. That drama's behind them. He's got his own contract. All that's behind him. Yeah, they know their defense is going to have to overachieve to be competent, but They believe in the firepower that they had offensively. And then week two, he gets knocked out with a serious injury. And you can't help but think, as he's in the darkness of rehab, watching his team just lay egg after egg after egg, that he's sitting there wondering, God, it'd be so different if I could just be on the field right now, and probably feels guilty for not being there for his guys. So to see Joe Flacco, the guy who saved the Browns 2 years ago, come into Cincinnati and save them again. Oh, it had to be such a relief for him. And finally, he could watch his teammates enjoy success and not feel like all the blame is on him.
And the season's alive at 2-5 and with the Steelers ahead. It's a race to 6. This is going to be my rallying cry for the Bengals from now on. Get to 6 wins without Burrow. If you get to 6 wins, and I'm projecting and doing the math on the timelines, a Burrow return roughly in mid-December. So if you can get to 6 wins by then, you're maybe, what would you be? You'd be 6 and 8 at like 6 and 7 at worst, something like that. If you can get to 6 and 6 or 6 and 7 or whatever it's gonna be, 5 and 7, just keep them in it to give Burrow a chance to come in for the last 4 to 5 games and win them all down the stretch, or stay at 500. It's possible. You just mentioned the Browns. All right, let's get to just a very quick Browns angle of this all. Because yes, everyone was reminded, I think, of a couple of TNF games. Number one, the Flacco game a couple of years ago when he led them to a playoff berth. That was pretty sweet on TNF, and they're chanting Flacco's name, just like they wasn't as loud, but at the beginning of that last drive, they were chanting Flacco's name. Also, last year there was a great Browns game on TNF, by the way, in the snow that you went to.
Yeah.
That was a classic. But watching Flacco in this system the last 6 quarters, because he was great in the second half too against the Packers, a really good defense, it just makes the Browns look even worse. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it just reminds you how tough it is right now for Dylan Gabriel, or if Shadur Sanders ever plays, Shadur Sanders, like, just fighting so hard uphill. Now look what Joe Flacco can do. Supported not even by a great offensive line or anything. Obviously, great weapons around him.
Yeah, it must be weird for Joe Flacco to join the team that he should have beaten in week 1. Like, he played well enough in that game. The 2 picks he threw were basically bobbles and drops right into the hands of Bengals defenders. Like, he played very well. And then from there, things got worse in Cleveland. The offensive line broke down. They lost their tackles. They couldn't protect him. Flacco is not mobile. He could not break the pocket. And I know I'm saying Flacco is not mobile on a night in which he took a zone read option around the left side for a first down, which was, if you threw 1,000 plays on the wall, that would be the last play I'd pick that the Bengals would call, which is why it was a galaxy brain call. But like, he couldn't move. And the most damning part of it for the Browns is the fact that Flacco looks 10 times better with good receivers. That's all it took. Good receivers. The Browns, Jerry Jeudy dropping passes over and over again when Flacco hits him in his hands. Started in week 1, continued throughout the rest of his tenure. Defenses eventually came to the point where they were like, we don't have to worry about them hurting us in the passing game because those guys aren't going to catch the ball anyway. All we have to do is stop the run and pin our ears back on 3rd and long and get after Flacco because we know he can't move. That is a losing scenario. And the Browns benching of Joe Flacco was justified because of their weaknesses everywhere else. But that is not to criticize Joe Flacco because clearly he still has it. It's just that's how bad the situation is in Cleveland.
The offensive line, like they have to play, and we don't want this to be a Browns discussion, so we'll move on afterwards. But yeah, the offensive line is so bad, and it's the difference, I think, between a mediocre offensive line, which is what the Bengals have, but that's kind of all you need. It's all you like want in the end is just to not have your offensive line kill you. And the Browns have the most expensive offensive line in the league. And they put a ton of resources in it, and it absolutely kills their team. So
there is one big difference too. Like, I still see people wearing Flacco t-shirts, even though after they traded him.
Oh, no.
One difference between 2 years ago and now, when in his time with the Browns, they had Amari Cooper 2 years ago. Amari Cooper, who could still catch the ball. He was Joe Flacco's Jamar Chase for most of that season. They don't have that receiver anymore. That was the big difference.
They don't. And you know what one member of the media for the Steelers also won't have?
Oh, boy.
His nipples as
untouched,
beautiful and What did you call it?
Unaltered.
Yes, unaltered would be the way. I don't know if you saw this, but yeah. A local radio guy, Andrew Filipponi, I believe is his name, on 93.7, The Fan, said that the Steelers had, no chance that they would lose this game, and he would get his nipples pierced without any painkiller, I believe, or any medication beforehand if they lost this game. And he, at the end of the night, he sent a picture of his hairy nipples, which I did not need to see, and say, like, this is the last time, say goodbye to these sweet babies.
Is he getting both? Is he getting a hoop? Is he getting a bar? These are the details I need. And in fact, live stream the piercing. You got to own up to it. I'm not going to watch, but it's good
Honestly,
content.
I feel like I am annoyed almost giving him so much attention, because he is someone who is a radio guy there who is always looking to get attention, has had so many wrong reports about the Steelers over the years. But yeah, he should be shamed for saying one of those stupid things. He said, no way the Steelers lose tonight. In fact, I'll get my nipples pierced with no numbing agents if they lose to the Bengals. It ain't happening. Well, you know what? It happened. That's what football is about. Of course, you would rather have a career where you just have sustained, like, really high level play.
Not possible,
because that's what you can control. But as much fun as Phillip Rivers, for instance, had, and he might be going to the Hall of Fame, man, Joe Flacco has strung together a collection of moments. The greatest one being, of course, one of the greatest Super Bowl performances, I think, of all time, and certainly one of the greatest postseason performances. But he's also just had nights. A lot of them have come against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. One of them came for your Browns. I don't think he had one for the Jets. That's just how bad the Jets are.
Or the Eagles.
or
the Broncos.
Nights like tonight. That's what life is like, not just career. It's like, he's not going to the Hall of Fame someday, but goddamn, like, we're never going to forget Joe Flacco. It's one of the reasons why I hate the quote, like, well, if you can't, tell the story of football without him, he deserves, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
No, you can. Put him in the Hall of Fun. Same acronym.
Sure. Because, like, he's given us a lot. I didn't know if we would have another one, but he gave us another one tonight.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, he's a great guy for it to happen to. He's a classic, just a happy dad and a good husband who can still sling the rock and can still get calls from teams, get off of his couch. He did that 2 years ago. He's been on teams since then. Make a drive down across the state, cram the offense while while somebody's driving him down to Cincinnati, and go out and deliver in prime time.
I love it. I mean, we had collected so many highlights from this game, and yet they almost feel secondary. The one funny moment that I don't want to forget, though, is just Aaron Rodgers cussing out Jaylen Warren early in the game on what appeared to be a flea flicker that was not supposed to be a flea flicker, which, judging by the reaction of Rodgers, like, I believe him. He was so surprised to get the ball back, and he yells, what the F are you doing? And then, according to pretty expert lip readers, I think he just says that was not supposed to be a flea flicker. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers for being aware enough in the moment to catch that ball and then throw it into the ground.
He gets, like, surprised by the ball and just dirts
Never seen that.
How do you mess up that play call? Like, a flea flicker play call has got to be pretty unique, but who knows? Right,
that's what I was like, is there a chance Rodgers is the one that messed that up and he forgot and just in the moment, like, lost his head? Because, like, I don't know. How would a running back think to do that and everyone else is blocking the play? Who really knows? What a night. And yeah, you mentioned the inflexibility from the Steelers. I just checked while you were chatting, and they were in man coverage almost 50% tonight.
Yep.
In the year 2025.
Yep. And that is how you get toasted by a premier route runner like Jamar Chase to the tune of 16 catches. Yep. Great fantasy night for Jamar.
It feels like, unreal. Yeah, all the people that thought the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase fantasy seasons were over, Joe Flacco has come to save them, like the Bengals. The Bengals are at 3-4. Like, they were the worst team in football for a month straight, and yet they are at 3-4. And the Steelers fall to 4-2. I'm looking at a schedule that has their preseason record. I don't need that. Okay, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about what teams we think could make the Super Bowl. We'll see if your answer on the Steelers changed after